This whole topic makes me feel like a dinosaur. It makes me feel old. Hi guys, and welcome back to LVH Talks. I hope you're all doing well. So today's topic is going to be about polyamorous relationships and whether or not you are for or against them. There's no right or wrong answer today, so whatever your opinion is, please post it below in the comment section. It'd be great to hear what you think of all of this. So, polyamory. Now, I actually did get a definition up because although I do think the majority of people do know what this is at this point, in case you don't, I'm going to read out a definition that's from Wikipedia just to give you an idea of what the subject is actually talking about. So, polyamory is the practice of or desire for romantic relationships with more than one partner at the same time, with the informed consent of all partners involved. So, I won't lie to you, this whole topic makes me feel like a dinosaur. It makes me feel old. And I think that's because I am quite a traditional person when it comes to these things. I'm a bit old-fashioned probably in many ways when it comes to relationships. So polyamory it's like a whirlwind to me. But that's why I wanted to talk about it today, because I think I also probably need to educate myself on this subject. So, I think what stood out to me about the definition is that idea of mutual consent. I think that that's a very important part of polyamory, because without mutual consent, without both people understanding the type of relationship that they're getting involved in, it's just cheating, right? It's an unhealthy relationship without that mutual consent. So that mutual consent, I think, is very important. I think it's the most important part. And I think that, everyone is entitled to be in whatever kind of relationship they want to be in, as long as it's healthy, right? And as long as both people understand what that relationship is about. So is it the way forward? Because I definitely feel like polyamory is becoming more accepting, or it's becoming more popular. It seems to be, this idea of open relationships seems to be something that more and more people are feeling drawn towards. And so is it the future? Is it the way everyone's going? Is it how we were supposed to be in relationships? And obviously it's hard to answer that because everyone is different. Now, is it real love? And what I mean by that is, I'm not saying that in a patronising way. I mean, is it actual real love? This idea that you're sharing it around, that you're not just giving it all to the one person, that actually you're giving it to several people, that you're showing that type of affection for more than one person. Is that the way that we're actually supposed to be loving each other? Or is it greedy? Is it just an excuse to have multiple partners? Is it an excuse to be with several people at once because one person just isn't enough? Now, I think in many ways, to me, the difficulty that I have with it, more than anything else, is, does it even make sense? Does it make sense? Because something that my brain says to me when I think about this subject over and over again, and it's probably something that's been talked about openly already, that people that are involved in an open relationship can probably answer for me, is, does it not just make more sense to remain single and date? Does it not make more sense to do that? Like, something that I always come back to is that thought process of, well, if you want to see multiple people, does it not make more sense to just be single and date around, and be open about that? Because I think what I struggle with is the idea that it's a relationship, that it's trying to be as a monogamous relationship would be, with the inclusion of others and other parties involved, which to me just sounds like what people would do if they wanted to be single but date. So I think that that's something that I struggle with, is the idea that does it even make sense? Or is the idea that you get the best of both worlds, that you get to almost live as a single person would live by dating around, whilst also having the comfort of a real relationship, the things that perhaps single life doesn't touch upon, that single life doesn't give you in the way that a relationship does. So is it more about you get the best of both worlds because you get to live as a single person would, but you also get the comfort of having real relationships with people where you build on that and you build strong foundations? So where has this even come from? Why has there been such an increase of these types of relationships? And I think that there's been almost a growth of independence. I think it's almost like what I was saying in one of my previous videos, that we seem to be living in an age of independence right now where people are very much striving for that, really getting to know themselves, really almost living for themselves. And especially I think for women, that sense of independence is definitely more at the forefront of their minds than it used to be. So is that where it's come from, this idea that being in an open relationship still gives you that opportunity to be independent, perhaps in a way that you wouldn't be in a monogamous relationship? It's interesting. Another point to put out there as well is that, is a polyamorous relationship more about protecting yourself? Because something that stands out to me is that, if it's not about just allowing your feelings to be directed in whatever direction they want to go in, and allowing yourself to act upon those feelings rather than try and suppress them, then is it about protecting your heart? Because a lot of people have been hurt by other people at some point in their life, or have been disappointed, have been let down. And so is the idea of having multiple partners actually a way of almost creating a safety net around yourself that protects you from experiencing that level of hurt again? Because if you think about it this way, if a relationship doesn't work out with one person that you are in a relationship with, you still have other people who, in a way, you can fall back on. You don't feel like you've lost that relationship completely because you've not put all your eggs in one basket. So is it more of a safety net? Is that something to be considered here? Is it in a way more of a risk to take a chance on one person with your feelings than it is to have several people around you who you have a connection with? Because that way you're kind of covering your bases, Is it more about that? Does it actually stem from, trying to avoid putting yourself in a vulnerable position with your feelings? So it's an interesting topic and one that I feel like I don't know a lot about, but I do think it's something that there is more of an acceptance around now, and more people curious to try it out now than there perhaps used to be. But where do you stand on this subject? Are you more into monogamous relationships and more the traditional sense? Like, I would say I am, and the idea of being in a polyamorous relationship really does make me feel uncomfortable, but only for me, not in terms of how I view other people and wanting to do that. It's more about myself. I can't ever see myself going in that direction. I would never think about it, but some people do. And I guess my thought process here is trying to understand that and trying to understand where that comes from. And, I think something that I can imagine puts people like me off being in a polyamorous relationship is because I can see how those that have been hurt in previous relationships or have experienced anything along the lines of cheating may be put off by being in a polyamorous relationship because they can see or draw similarities there. Even though the mutual consent is the difference, right? The idea that both people have consented to being in that relationship as it stands and they know what they're letting themselves in for. Therefore, it does have a difference, but I would imagine that being in a polyamorous relationship can definitely trigger old wounds in that respect. So I'm wondering if that is where it comes from. But I'm also wondering if that's also the very thing that draws people to polyamorous relationships, is the pain that they've experienced in their previous relationships. Have they given up on monogamy because they've had monogamous relationships that didn't work out, and so they've lost faith or hope that that's even functional, or that's even something that, you know, can be successful for them in their lives? I don't know, there's so many different directions I feel like you could go in with this subject, but what do you think? Let me know in the comment section below where you stand on this subject, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.